I am going to be talking about categorising, but first I want to introduce you to a term which is called semantics. Now, when children are young, they use all of their senses to take in information about the world around them. And the word I just said before, semantics, it means the storage of all of the information in your brain and how it is organised. So if a baby or a toddler is really taking in all of that information around them, they're using all of their senses. They're seeing, smelling, hearing, tasting, touching, feeling, balancing. They're just taking in all of that information through their senses. So if I use the example of a gravelly path, for example, and you go on a gravelly path on a hiking trail with your toddler or your baby, and they take in all of that information, they might lick it. And that is totally normal for our babies and toddlers because they're just using one of their senses to work out how that tastes. And over time, we might say to them, yuck, don't lick that. But that's because we have previously stored all this information in our brain about different parts of the world and different types of paths, and we've learnt that it's not really a good idea to lick it. It's dirty, it doesn't taste very nice, it doesn't feel very nice, etc. But our babies don't yet have that information stored in their brain. To them, everything is new, and so they're going to be licking things a lot. And then over time, storing that information and starting to make a prediction that it might not taste very nice. They might also see it. They can see that it's made of little bits of gravel, it's in nature, or it's a pathway, or it's at their school. So they're thinking about locations. Where is it? They might see the colour of it. They might touch it and they notice that it's rough. It might even scratch or hurt their hands a little bit. They're going to smell it. Might not have a smell unless it's rained, for example. They hear the crunch, crunch, crunch when they walk on it. And they might even really be storing information about how it feels. They might slip a little bit because the gravel can make you slide and slip a little bit, which makes you lose your balance. And balance and vestibular information is another one of their senses. So if you're thinking about that experience that your child is having just on a gravelly path, it's like an explosion chart of information about a gravel path. And we want them to start storing that information so that they've got it for next time. So next time they see a gravelly path, they might walk a little more carefully and they might not lick it and they might try not to fall over because they don't want to scratch or get a graze on their hands or their knees. And so they use that information to then make predictions and assumptions and problem solve in the future. So we want them to sort that information and to store it in a really organised way so that the next time they need that information, they can get it out really quickly. And one way to really encourage that organisation of all that information in their semantic storage of knowledge is categorising and sorting tasks. Now, you could have kids sorting things by colour, which might be something you can do with a toy where it's just lots of different objects in all different colours. You could also, which is also a good one for blocks. You could also do sorting nature bits and pieces by feel or by location where you got it. You could sort animals. You might have figurines and you could sort them by location or group that they might go in. You might have some farm animals and some zoo animals, or you might have dinosaurs and insects. So you can see what sort of groups you might have. You could sort vehicles if your child really loves vehicles. You might have planes and helicopters and cars and trucks and a boat, and you can sort them by location in terms of, do they go in the sky, are they on the ground, or do they go in the water? And so there's so many different ways of sorting and categorising. And so we could even do a free sort, as in we could just give them lots of different things, or they could make a collection and then we can say, hey, here's some bowls or here's some plates, or could you put them into some groups and see where they go with it. You might start them off if they don't really know what to expect, or you've never done any kind of categorizing tasks before, but you could do a free sort. So I want to show you this pack of cards that I've got as an example of how semantic storage might work in our brain. So I have just a general pack of cards, and I have pulled out one card to show you, and it is the Jack of Diamonds. Now, if I use all my senses, I can store quite a bit of information about the Jack of Diamonds, and so I might see that it's got diamonds on it and they are red. It's got a J, which is also red. It's got a person on it, which might be information that I really need if some of the cards don't have people on them. I can see that he has a bit of a grumpy face, he has a moustache. I'm not going to lick it because I can pretty much assume already that it's not a food item, and I can feel that it's nice and smooth, and it's very flat, and it's not very big, and it's red on the back. Okay, so I've stored lots of information and I've got lots of that in my brain. And then what I can do is I can get another card and I can make some comparisons. And so I can see, oh, okay, they both have red diamonds on them. That's exciting. And the 10 is red, just like the Jack is red, but obviously these are numbers and this is a letter. And this one has a person on it and this one doesn't. So I'm starting to make some comparisons and seeing what's the same and what's different. And that way I can start to go, okay, I can make some associations between these two things. They're not fully the same in all of their different aspects, but there are a few things that are similar, so they might go into a similar group. I'm not sure what that group is yet, but I'm going to store them pretty closely together because I feel like they do maybe go together. So this is this process that's happening in our brains. We're making comparisons, we're trying to make links between the things in our brain so that we can start to find some groups. Now, if I got this pack of cards and I threw them all on the floor and it made a complete mess, and then I said, go and find the Jack of Diamonds, that's going to be pretty difficult because they're not organized, they are spread out everywhere. I haven't made any associations between anything. I can't find a pattern there. They're just all thrown on the floor. And this is what's going to happen in our brain if things are not organised and they haven't been organised in a proper way when you've stored them. They're making no associations or links. However, if I took the time to sort these cards, to really look at them and go, okay, I can see that this one has a club shape on it and they are black, and I can see this one has diamonds on it and this one has love hearts, this one has spades. I'm seeing some groups start to emerge, and then I can sort them in those groups, and then I go, hey, there's numbers here, and I could sort them in order, and then I can make all of those associations. And I might also see that there's a king in all four sets. So even though they're in different groups, I could put all the kings together and all the queens together and all the jacks together and all the tens together. So there's lots of different ways of sorting. And I'm making all of those links and associations in my brain. So then what will happen is I've got my set of cards all beautifully organised, in order, in sets. And so when I need to get the Jack of Diamonds this time, it is as simple as knowing exactly where it is and getting it out when I need it. So this gives you an idea of why we really would like for our children's brains to take the time to store things, to make links, so that when they do need the information, it's really quick, instead of retrospectively trying to store all that information and learn about it. So you can see how nature can be a really good experience for kids because it really taps into so many more of their senses, more so than what their toys would. If you have a look at these toys, they're actually quite basic. There's not much to them. You could definitely look at their colours, but there's barely any smell. They're very smooth. You don't hear anything when you've got them unless you bang them together and do something. Whereas when you're in nature, so many of the different things that you'll find in nature have a smell, a noise, a sound, noise and sound. They will look different. You can really feel them, different sensations. And so we can really build all of that information if we're out in nature. Now, the thing about categorizing and sorting is that there's lots of natural events in our day that involve categorizing and sorting, and we can involve our kids in those events. So things like sorting socks into pairs and clothing into different types of clothing, different people's clothing, or putting towels in the linen closet and things like that. Another one might be shopping lists. You might see if you can organise your shopping list into things like dairy and fruit and vegetables and meat products and shelf products and things like that, because it's going to make it easier when you get to the shops to go and get what you need from each section. Then packing toys away. If everything has a place, then we're going to be able to sort and categorise them into their different boxes that they go into. Even things that aren't tangible, things that you can't hold. So understanding that running and jumping and climbing are outdoor activities, not indoor activities. So really starting to categorise those sorts of things. And also rules around people. Who's a friend? Who is a family member? What does that mean? Who's a stranger? And that can really help us when we start to have conversations around stranger danger and safe people and things like that. So categorizing comes up a lot in our environment. It's something that our brain will often do automatically, but it's something that we can really nurture in our kids as well. There are a few red flags to look out for when it comes to categorizing. Number one is if they're only doing rote learned categorizing. So you might have done a few activities with them and they always do amazingly when you give them some animals and they have to put them into zoo animals and farm animals, for example. But then you give them a whole new set of animals and they're not quite sure what to do with them. And over time, we would like kids to start solving that problem on their own and working it out. So if they're only doing the rote learned categorizing that you've taught them and no other types of categorizing, that would be a red flag. If you notice that they're using the wrong word for things quite often, this one really relates to the semantic storage. So you notice that they just use the wrong word for lots of different things. And this is probably something to look out for more after the age of 3, because before the age of 3, they're still learning a lot of vocabulary. They might say the wrong thing and that's okay. We're going to give them that feedback. But when you know they know something and they're still choosing a word that's not quite right, then that might be a red flag for us. And if their description skills are quite poor, if they're really not showing much variety in their language and they just can't describe anything. So as you can imagine, categorizing is a really important skill for our kids, something that we can nurture at home. So I'd love for you to try some of these activities at home with your kids.